Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirastakohakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amrita Drava Sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. So we now enter the 10th chapter of the 6th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we saw that the demon Vrtra was created by the father of Vishwarupa, Tvashta, and he was conquering all the devatas. So they pray to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan blesses them by saying they can approach the sage Dadichi, and he will offer his own body from which they can make a thunderbolt and thereby conquer Vrta. So now, having thus been instructed, Indra and the devatas, they approach the great sage Dadichi and they tell him that this is what the Lord has told them, that he has to offer his own body by which they can make the weapon that can conquer Vrtra. So Dadichi first speaks in jest and says, how can one part with his own body? Don't you know that the body is the most dear for everyone, and it is so hard to bear the pain of being robbed of one's own body, that is to lose one's body. The time of death is the most painful time. The body is the dearest object, and therefore, who would have the courage to part with it? So when he speaks like this in jest, the devatas are, of course, very worried, and they say to him with humility, we know it is very difficult to part with, but not for magnanimous souls like you, because you are compassionate to all beings, and only selfish people are not able to part with anything, whereas great beings like you can part with even their own body for the sake of dharma. So, hearing this, Dadichi smiles and says, of course, I just wanted to hear from you on the supreme position of dharma. Indeed, I am happy to cast my body off because it will serve your purpose. After all, he says beautifully, the body is meant to leave one day. And if one can use his body to become established in unconditional love for all beings, that is the only purpose of having got the body. He says the man who fails to have developed kindness to all living beings and thereby true religious merit, he has completely wasted the gift of being given this human body, which is transient. So the very purpose of having the human body is to develop unconditional love for all beings by having unconditional love for the Supreme Lord. And therefore, he says the everlasting virtue is only acquired by those who are filled with compassion and who grieve and rejoice with every other fellow being. So they don't have any personal grief or sorrow or joy. Their grief and joy are only due to the grief and joy of the fellow beings. So they are full of compassion, that they are affected by the people around them, the beings around them. They are so sensitive, they are full of love and compassion, and that's the nature of the true enlightened sage. And therefore, he says that the one who is not able to serve others with whatever he has got, whether it be his own body or his wealth or his family, all of this is meant to only engage in service to the Supreme Lord and to all beings who are manifestations of the same Supreme Lord. Therefore, he says the only purpose of having the human body, having wealth, having all relations, people, anything that one might have in one's possession one's family. All of this is meant to be engaged in service. And therefore, he says the one who engages his body and his wealth in service is the one who has truly realized the purpose of life itself. And if one is attached to the body and to the family and to wealth and hoards it and does not engage it in service, and he has not developed any compassion and love for fellow beings, he is not able to see the transitory nature of everything and see that the only purpose is in engaging it in service, he has wasted his life. So, thereby, he gives a small, nice discourse on the very purpose of life itself. And then, having made up his mind to drop his body, Dadichi sits in meditation and, having controlled all his senses, his prana, his mind, intellect, everything regulated, and his eyes fixed on the truth, he, in a very beautiful yogic way, he completely goes within, and thereby he drops the body in supreme yoga without even realizing when the body fell. He becomes one with the supreme being without any individual consciousness anymore, and the body falls off on its own. Now, taking up this body, the divine architect Vishwakarma makes the thunderbolt, which is prophesied as the weapon to make Indra defeat Vrtra. So Indra feels now very strong, and with this weapon, surrounded by all the devatas, Indra is being praised by everyone as he mounts his elephant Airavata, and they all go and attack this demon Vrtra. And Vrtra is surrounded by his demonic forces, and there is a fierce battle that happens on the banks of the river Narmada. River Narmada is a very holy river, and on the banks of the river Narmada, it is said at the beginning of Treta Yuga. Treta Yuga is the second in the order of yugas. So the first is Satya Yuga, next is Treta, then follows Dwapara Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. So in the beginning of Treta Yuga, it is said, in the current Vaivasvata Manvantara, this battle happens on the banks of Narmada, and there is a fierce battle between the demons headed by Vrtra and the devatas headed by Indra. Indra is surrounded by all the devatas such as the Vasus, the Adityas, the Rudras, the Ashwini Kumaras, the Pitrus, the Maruts. So many various divine beings are listed here. We have all seen them also described once in a while. So all the various divine beings are all in the army of Indra. And similarly, all the various demons, their names are all given here, many names, and they are all in the army of Vrtra. And the demons carry all kinds of weapons. They have maces and arrows and darts and wooden weapons with iron spikes on them, and lances, various weapons they carry. All these weapons are listed, and then with these weapons they attack the devatas, and there is a fierce battle that goes on, and the devatas retaliate, and this battle goes on, and all the weapons of the demons are destroyed. And when all the weapons are destroyed and depleted, then they start hurling stones and rocks and trees and mountain peaks, and they are also destroyed by the devatas. Now the demons recognize that their cause is a lost cause, so they start abandoning their leader Vrtra, and they all start running. They are all finding that their efforts are fruitless. They are now robbed of their energy, and they start fleeing the battlefield. And seeing this, Vrtra, who is very valiant, who has been brought forth by Yajna, as we saw by Twashta, is the brother of Vishwarupa. He is no ordinary demon, even though he is a demon. So he laughs and makes a very brave speech, first of all addressing these fleeing demons. He says, "You are fleeing like cowards, but death is sure to befall everyone, and there is no means to avoid death. Then why are you running away from death when you can actually win this battle or court death in a valiant way?" And then he says very accurately that two modes of death are approved and they are very rare to come. One is the one who practices yoga and thereby drops off his body, being one with Brahman. So we saw this very example of Dadichi doing this exact way of dropping the body, being one with Brahman. So he says that's the one way to drop the body, being one with Brahman in yoga. And the second is to be in the forefront of a battle with with no fear, never running back, but facing the enemy and thereby dying in the battlefield. And so these are the two ways the scriptures have said are the sacred ways to die, to be completely thereby free of attachment to the body. Because if one is able to fight in the battle without turning back and face the fear of death and completely conquer it and be ready to die, then in that moment he is freed of the attachment to the body as well. So this is also approved. So he says these are the two ways the scriptures have approved, and yet you are running away when you are being offered the second option, which is to fight these devatas and either win or reach heaven, so to speak. So, but they don't listen to his speech and they just run away, all the demons. And with this, 10th chapter ends and the 11th chapter begins, which is a very beautiful chapter because we will see the real heart of Vrtra now. Vrtra has been portrayed as this demon, but we see his bravery first of all, where he stands alone as all the demons run away. And now, what happens is, after all these demons run away, Vrtra does not flinch one bit. He now starts fighting the devatas all by himself, and he sees that the devatas are starting to kill the fleeing demons. They are killing them on their back. As the demons are fleeing, these devatas are hurling weapons so that they are hurt, they are killed by being attacked on the back. So he is now chastising the devatas by saying, what will be gained by you through attacking these fugitives, striking them from behind? It is neither praiseworthy nor conducive to your karma. That is, this is considered bad karma to attack someone who is fleeing on their back. So if you are really keen on fighting, here I am standing right in front of you, fight me. And thus he threatened the host of devatas all alone, and they were all terrified by his very speech because now he looked so gigantic. He was so full of bravery, absolutely fearless, and his very yell and his very voice made the devatas tremble, it is said, and they were running hither and thither. And he was marching, hurling weapons single handedly and killing so many devatas. And Indra himself, who was mounted on his Airavat, was struck with the great bravery of this Vrtra. And what he does is Indra hurls the thunderbolt even at him first. In the beginning, it doesn't have any effect, and then Airavat is struck. So Vrtra strikes the elephant Airavat, which is the elephant on which Indra is mounted. He strikes this elephant with his mace, and the elephant, he is so powerful, Vrtra, that the elephant itself is flung for a long distance and hurt badly, and Indra himself is hurt. And seeing all this, Vrtra now roars a giant laughter, and then now he makes this most beautiful speech. First of all, he addresses Indra and says, you are one who has slayed a sage, because as we remember, Indra slayed Vishwarupa, who was his own teacher, and the only mistake Vishwarupa did was he offered sacred oblations to the demons as well. So for that reason, Indra slayed his own preceptor. So Vrtra says, first of all, you who slayed a Brahmana, a sage, a preceptor, and also my brother, you are here standing in front of me, and I am going to strike you with my weapon. You had ruthlessly killed my brother, and so I am going to take revenge. This is the purpose for which his father had created him. So he says, I am now having this great opportunity to strike you and take my revenge. So this is the greatest opportunity I have to offer you to the all the various birds and beasts who will devour on your body. But on the other hand, he says, if you succeed in crushing me and you kill me, I will consider it an honor as well. He says now very beautifully, he says, I am ready to give up my body because if you kill me, then I will attain the dust of the lotus feet of enlightened beings. Because he says, I know that you are having the thunderbolt that has been sanctioned by the Lord Himself, and because it has been sanctioned by the Lord, it is sure to win. So now, even though he is standing there bravely, he has struck fear in the hearts of all the devatas. Indra himself is trembling, but he knows that eventually he is going to die because he knows that the devatas have the blessing of the Lord. And now Vrtra reveals that he is completely devoted to the Lord in his heart, even though he has got a demoniacal body outside. So he says, O Indra, surely this thunderbolt, which has been blessed with the energy of the Supreme Lord Sri Hari and given from the body of the great sage Dadichi, it is going to be victorious and it is going to get rid of me, and victory and fortune are assured to you. But let me tell you that I am just going to concentrate my mind on the Supreme Lord, and all the cords of attachment to pleasures of sense will be removed when you strike me with your thunderbolt. He says, I am ready to give up this body, and not only that, I am ready to remove all attachment to any kind of sense pleasure whatsoever by completely focusing my mind on the Supreme Lord, and thereby I shall cast off this body when you kill me and attain the destiny of a sage. And he says, then the Lord does not bestow riches on the people whom he favors. The one who is rather not favored by the Lord is given heaven, but the one who is truly favored by the Lord is given his own lotus feet. And therefore he says the Lord does not bestow on those who are devoted to him the riches available in heaven, because he says from that only greed and hatred and fear and discord and conflict will come. So anytime there is pleasure, there is always comparison, there is greed, and there is desire for more and more, and this is what results. And therefore he says the Lord does not bestow heaven on those whom he truly favors, because he says our Lord frustrates the efforts of those who want any kind of sensual pleasure or riches. So he says the three goals for which people run after all the time: dharma, artha, kama, that is religious merit, wealth, and pleasure. Anyone who has truly got the grace of the Lord, they don't get this. He says it's very beautifully said by Vrtra that normally people pray to God for getting these things, for getting religious merit, for getting wealth, for getting various objects of desire. But those who are truly favored by the Lord, those who have got the grace of the Lord, they do not get this. They make all kinds of effort, but they do not get it. Their efforts are frustrated, because that is the sign of grace. Because when they are frustrated in their efforts to get wealth and riches and objects of pleasure, then they completely surrender and they have nothing to call their own. He says, त्रैवर्गिकाय असविघात अस्मत्पतिर विधते पुरुषस्य शक्र ततो अनुर्मेयो भगवत प्रसादो यो दुर्लभो akinchana gocharo anyaihi. So he says akinchana gochara means those who have nothing to call their own, they surrender to the Lord completely, and therefore the Lord frustrates the efforts of those who want to acquire any kind of wealth of any kind if they are truly the uh, recipient of his grace. So what Vrtra says here is, you have been blessed to get this thunderbolt, you have been blessed to win this battle, you have been blessed to get heaven, but recognize that this is not the greatest blessing. The greatest blessing is the one who is denied all these things, because when heaven is denied, when pleasures are denied, when riches are denied, when there is nothing to call one's own, then such a being is truly recipient of the grace of the Lord because he surrenders completely and he has only Lord as his own. And then he says a prayer which is one of the most beautiful prayers of Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam has so many beautiful prayers in every skandha, and in this skandha, these are some of the most beautiful prayers. He turns his mind towards the Lord right in the battlefield. He knows that his end is near, and now he addresses the Lord and he says, "O Lord Sri Hari, if I die now, may I be born again as a servant of devotees who have taken refuge in your lotus feet. Let my mind ponder upon you, let my tongue celebrate you, and let my body serve you." This is my only prayer. He says, Aham Hare Tava Pada Eka Mula Dasanu Daso Bhavitasmi Bhuyah Manasmaret Supater Gunanste Granita Vag Karma Karotu Kayah. So I don't mind being born again. I can be born anywhere, but wherever I am born, may I be born as a servant of your devotees. Dasanu daso bhavitasmi bhuyah. And he says, may I take refuge only in your lotus feet. Padaika mula. So in your lotus feet, may I take refuge as the servant of the servants of your lotus feet. And may my mind, speech, and body all be engaged. So mana, vak, kaya, mind, speech, and body may all be engaged in your service. And then he says, O Lord, I do not need any heavenly abode, any rulership, any sovereignty over any land of any nature, any superpower, any yogic powers, or even liberation. All I need is only you. And if you are not there, none of these have any value. He says, Nanaka Prishtam, Nacha Parameshtyam, Na Sarvabhaumam, Na Rasahadipatyam, Na Yoga Siddhi Rapunar Bhavam, Va Samanjasatva Virahaya Kankshe. He says, I do not desire anything. As long as you are not there, O Lord, I do not desire the highest abode in the heavens, the sovereignty over all of earth, yogic powers, none of this is desirable if you are not there. And then a most moving verse, he says, just as young little birds in the nest are eager to see the mother bird, just as young calves with hunger are eager to get the milk of their mother cow, and just as a beloved wife separate from her husband is eager to see her husband absent from home, O Lord, similarly, I am eager to behold you. So he is right there on the battlefield. He is about to die. He knows that he has been destined to die. The thunderbolt has been blessed by the Lord himself to Indra, and he knows that therefore his lot is to die at the hands of Indra. And instead of fearing, he not only embraces this death, but he says, this death is welcome because I want to behold you. And so he says, Ajata Paksha iva mataram kagaha, stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudartaha, priyam priyeva vishutum vishanna, mano aravindaksha didrikshate tvam. So Ajata Paksha iva mataram kagaha, just as young birds in their nest are eager for their mother bird. Stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudartaha. Young calves are eager for their mother's milk. Priyam priyeva vyushitum vishanna. The beloved wife is eager to meet her husband again, who's gone away. Similarly, Mano Aravindaksha, O lotus-eyed Lord, Didrikshate Tuam, I am eager to behold you. This prayer is a very beautiful prayer, often quoted, and especially unique because it is coming from a demon. Normally, the great devotees of the Lord are very beautiful looking and very graceful and very pleasing and so on. But then it is not always so. This is Vrtra the demon who's got a gory look, who's outwardly very ferocious, and yet in his heart he is so tender. And this is why it is always said, do not judge a book by its cover. One doesn't know the heart of a person based on one's activities or one's looks or one's behavior or anything, because one's heart is something that cannot be known through any outer appearance. So here Vrtra at the moment of death reveals his heart, and then he concludes his prayer by saying, if I am born again, and this is again such a beautiful prayer that one can take to heart. He says, let my friendship only be with the devotees of you, O Lord, and let my mind never be attached to those who are attached to their own body and their children and their wife and home. Let my friendship be only with devotees and not with those who are caught in attachment. He says, Mama uttama shloka janeshu sakhyam samsara chakre brahmatasva karma bihi twan mayaya atma atmaja dara griheshu asakta chittasya nanatha bhuyat. So those who have any attachment to their own body, their children, their wife, their house, their family, such people are bewildered by your own maya, tvamayaya, he says, by your own maya they are bewildered. And may I have no friendship with them. Nanatha bhuyat sakhyam. May I have no friendship with them. And then he says, but my friendship may be with only those who are ever devoted to you. Mama uttama shloka janeshu sakhyam. On the other hand, my friendship be with those who always adore you, the Lord of excellent renown. So with this prayer, Vrtra is now ready to die. These prayers, each one of them, are so beautiful to take to one's heart, and how he expresses at the moment of death with complete surrender unto the Lord and says, all I want to be is to die now and born, if I have to be born again, as a servant of your devotees. And I do not want any other post in the heaven or on earth or any yogic power or even liberation. I am only eager to see you as a bird is eager to see her mother, as a beloved her husband. And I need friendship only with your devotees and not with those who are caught in Maya. So this whole prayer, these 4 shlokas, are so special in Bhagavatam and so moving. And with this moving prayer, Vrtra is now ready to be slayed. He is ready to depart his body in glorious battle with Indra. And with this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.